You've heard the saying, behind every good man is a good woman. Well, how about behind every good county are thousands of great women? That's what you'll find right here in our community. As we celebrate our centennial, we take a look back at just a few of those women that helped shape Clark County. The politicians, the activists, and of course, the entertainers.
Stars of stage, screen, and television appear nightly in the theater restaurants and lounges of the resort hotels.
We didn't know where we were going. So he says, don't worry, I'll take you to Las Vegas, called Las Vegas City. That's where we're gonna perform. So we came to Thunderbird Hotel. We opened February 3rd, and 1959. And that was our first engagement.
With a new manager behind the wheel, Sue Kim Bonifazio, member of the Kim sisters, was a long way from home. The sisters were discovered while they entertained GIs in their native Korea. Performing was simply a means to help their struggling mother after their father was captured and killed by North Koreans. They got paid a case of whiskey in those days. Mom would then trade it on the black market for food, but those days would soon be over.
We came this country $400 for three of us a month salary. And we ate, we paid the rent, we sent the money to Korea at the time. We didn't have a car, we had to walk, to the hotel.
The sisters' popularity began to grow by singing famous American songs, but there was just one problem.
We didn't understand one word what we were singing. We sang phonetically, just what it sounds like, we sang. We act like we knew what we were singing, but we had no clue what the meaning of the song.
The language barrier didn't slow down their rise to fame. Every hotel on the Strip was after them. The Stardust Hotel was the one that finally inked the deal.
That lounge was going on from, 7 p.m. to the next day morning, 7 a.m. at the time. So we were doing like 5 or 6 shows at night. Our feet were just so tired, we couldn't even climb up the stairs. That's how bad it was, but thank God we were young, we couldn't care less, So at Stardust Hotel, they signed us 8 months out of a year for 15 years.
The Sister Act was unlike any other of the time.
My mother was a very kind of a smart lady, wise. She had a lot of common sense. She said, there are so many sisters act in America. You guys gonna go there just singing. You're never gonna make it. You have to be different. So therefore, you have to learn instrument.
Mom was right. They mastered more than a dozen instruments, and that caught the eye of talk show giant Ed Sullivan.
The delightful Kim sisters.
The sisters became the most reoccurring act in the history of the show.
As we getting on his show more and more, we found out he liked us quite a bit because we always come on his show with a different instrument. So every show we come on, we'll come with a banjo, clarinet, marimba. I play 13 different instruments myself. All these shows, he got us up. What do you want to come back to my show next? What instrument you want to come back on? We got to learn. We ran out of instrument one time. He said, what are you going to come back? I said, jokingly, I said, how about bagpipe? You got it. You got 2 months.
Trying to come up with something new, these Kim sisters. Here are instruments very difficult to play, and they have mastered them. Kims, take it.
In 2 months, we learned. Ed Sullivan hired, 25 bagpipe band behind us. It was the most magnificent number it became. And Ed Sullivan actually made us who we are, big.
Also making appearances on Ed Sullivan were the Kim brothers, who came to Nevada in the 60s to join the family business. In 1975, the sisters moved down the Strip to the Las Vegas Hilton, sharing the hotel with a Las Vegas legend.
I saw Elvis every day. It's funny that Elvis came to see our show, Stardust Hotel, one time, and he wanted to have a date with me.
But that wouldn't happen. Mom had strict rules. They were there to work, not to play. But there was plenty of stargazing.
We met Maguire's sister. We met Andrew's sister, Tony Bennett, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin's show we were on, Kirk Douglas. We met in New York, Broadway show, Julie Andrew. We met a lot of people.
Eventually, their mother's words fell by the wayside. There would be romance for the sisters. By the mid-70s, all three were married, and the group eventually disbanded. But Sue kept on working, singing with her brothers at the Holiday Casino, now Harrah's, until 1992.
I told my husband the other day, do you know, we arrived here 59. I never, ever had to worry about where's our next job going to be. Never did. How lucky is that?
Like Sue, Nancy Williams Baker performed up and down the Strip. Her first dancing gig was at the El Rancho back in 1949.
It was so rural. We had stables in back of the El Rancho. And we'd get the kitchen to pack us a lunch, and we'd go back there and saddle a horse and ride up the Strip. Sometimes if we didn't take a lunch, we'd ride to the Flamingo and tie our horses up, because every hotel had a place to tie up your horse.
Life for the 18-year-old wasn't always a picnic.
We did 14 shows a week. We rehearsed all the time because we were always getting ready for a new show. And we made the magnificent sum of $87.50 a week.
What she lacked in pay, she made up for in excitement, rubbing elbows with major stars.
Carmen Miranda, I always thought, was just so glamorous.
What is it, 6 o'clock? What a hollerer!
And Nancy even knew Sammy before he ran with his pack.
Sammy was 18, I was 18, and his father and his uncle and Sammy had the tap dancing act. And when we would be rehearsing, he would come and we would all tap dance and we'd challenge each other. And after they would tap dance a little bit, his father and his uncle, being much older, were out of breath. So Sammy would stop and do some imitations. And that's how he got started, and he'd sing a little song. And then they'd tap dance again.
After performing, there wasn't much to do in the small, dusty town, besides getting into a little trouble.
It was early 1949, and there was a playboy. He had a brand new Cadillac convertible, and he said, "Girls," he says, "come on, come away from the pool." Well, he said, "They're opening an airport here." And he said, "Let's go look at it." So we all jumped in his Cadillac, drove out forever. It seemed it was really far, and came to McCarran. Turned off the highway, drove right out on the runway because there wasn't a fence anywhere. And they were in the tower going, "Get off the runway." But there were no planes, maybe twice a day.
Nancy later danced at the Flamingo, the Last Frontier, and the Thunderbird, but she hung up her dancing shoes in 1954, the year the Showgirls went topless.
That's me right there with the Dice Girls, and we tap danced on top of these wooden dice.
Nancy's still surrounded by heavy headdresses and sequin get-ups, but she's not wearing it, she rents it, as the owner of Williams Costume Company. For more than 30 years, Nancy's been making and renting costumes for all types of folks.
A lot of entertainers that are impersonators that come in too. I need another wall.
From entertainer to entrepreneur, Nancy has seen it all and relished every minute.
This is also the Last Frontier. I've loved every year I've been in Las Vegas. I've enjoyed every single year, and it's always been a very full and interesting life every day that I've been here.
Female entertainers in the earlier days of Clark County wasn't a new idea, but female politicians, well, that was a whole new game. Thalia Dondero, the very first female county commissioner, found herself fighting the good old boy mentality, but that would seem like nothing compared to some of the challenges she would face.
This is NBC Nightly News.
Good evening. At least 75 people have died today in a fire in the biggest hotel in Las Vegas.
One of the first big issues I had facing me as a county commissioner was a fire at the MGM. And so I went down, and of course it was around the clock. You're talking to people, helping them because there were missing people. Some of the staff members had gone home out of the health district, and people that were, involved. And I had to call him, the coroner I had to call and said, "You've got to come back down here."
The 1980 fire started in the hotel's deli, an area that did not have overhead sprinklers. 86 people died and over 700 people were injured. Although it was one of Nevada's worst hotel disasters, it would prove to be a catalyst to improve safety on the Strip.
And then they put me on a national public works board, and we decided that everybody should be sprinkled at that time. And of course it was hard on the hotels to go back and sprinkle everything, but it was for the best of the public.
And now, because of Nevada's tough fire codes and retrofit laws, Clark County resorts are among the safest places to stay in the country.
I think that was a big step, but we got that accomplished. I mean, you know, you think about the things that you could just get done.
Long before Thalia was getting things done for the county, she was heading up the PTA for her children's schools in Las Vegas in the late 1940s.
I got to be president of the county organization and then of the state organization. I met a lot of school people, and that's when I first met Maud Frazier.
Frazier, the superintendent for Las Vegas schools, would ultimately be the one to encourage Thalia to run for public office.
She says, you know what, you can do anything you want to do it. So I did it.
Later, Thalia was appointed to the Nevada State's Parks Commission. It was there she became known as the Tree Lady.
And we went around the state, and every place that was beautiful, we had a state park. And the one park that we had such a hard time with was our Spring Mountain Park. Fletcher Jones was going to build condominiums on it, and we just kind of went crazy. And so we had to convince the State Park Commission that we needed to purchase it. And through the legislature, we did get the money.
Thalia went on to win a county commission seat in 1974, a position she would hold for the next 20 years. But that first day of the job was no walk in the park.
When I walked in the room, I had, like you, I had a piece of a pad and a pencil and sat down, and they looked at me, and Tom Wiesner said, would you take some notes? And I looked at him and I thought, you know, guess what, buddy? I have the same vote you have, and you may need it someday.
After refusing to become the commissioner's secretary, Thalia got on with the business of running the county, taking on critical issues like infrastructure, flood control projects, and airport expansion.
We were standing up looking down over the baggage area, and he's looking at me and he says, you know, what in the H do you need 3 football fields of baggage area? And you overbuilt parking. And I thought, well, we based it upon what we were studying and seeing. So today we could do more.
Thalia's 20-year run as county commissioner came to an end when she was defeated by Myrna Williams. But she was soon on to a new adventure when she was elected to Board of Regents of the Nevada System of Higher Education. Thalia spent over half a century of service to our county, paving the way and opening doors for other women to serve. Other women like Karen Hayes King.
Well, I was the mother of 6 children, and I really wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. That was really all I had ever wanted to do. I was very shy, but then my husband got cancer, and we knew it was probably going to be fatal. And so I also knew I had to get out of the kitchen and do something and probably support those kids.
Karen saw her opportunity when her husband Keith, still well enough to work, left the assembly to take an appointment as district court judge.
So I ran for his open seat, and really my idea was just get out and kind of get to know people, so if I ever had to have a job, at least I would, you know, have a few connections, and I loved it. At that time, we did everything. We had bills on pornography. We had to reinstate the death penalty. We had equal rights amendment, abortion. It was a very exciting time.
It was also a time of minority in the legislature. Out of 40 members, only 4 were women.
One day we decided that we wanted to have a women's caucus. So one of the legislators got up and said, Mr. Speaker, we'd like to have a women's caucus. And all the men are, what? Buzz, 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 buzz. And so he said, okay, we'll recess, have a women's caucus. We recessed and we got out the door of the big room in the assembly. It was like, okay, where are we going now? And what are we going to do? So we ended up going into the women's restroom to have our women's caucus, and we could hear the guys. We didn't have anything to talk about. We just kind of were exerting our power here.
But power struggles, luckily, were few and far between. the politicians also knew how to lighten up.
We had a turkey. If somebody had really goofed on something that they said, they would be awarded the turkey.
After 8 years in the assembly, Karen's run would end. In 1979, her husband succumbed to cancer, making it difficult for the suddenly single mother to travel back and forth to Carson City.
My mother babysat, and it was difficult being away from the kids without having their father there. So I was approached to run for the county commission. And I thought, I don't want to run for the county commission. I like the assembly. But, you know, it was a way to stay home with the kids. It was more or less salaried. It took care of a lot of problems. And so I ran against an incumbent and was surprised when I won.
Karen and the rest of the commission took on some big tasks. Bruce Woodbury's Beltway project, flood control, and her personal favorite, master plan communities.
We called them villages instead of the Green Valley or Summerlin or whatever. Summerlin was sort of our first project.
During those years, Karen watched the county she loved undergo major changes.
It was an interesting time because we really changed from the old West type strip to the Mirage. I was on the board when Steve Wynn first proposed the Mirage, which was so entirely different than anything we had at that time. You know, it really was the start of the changing of the strip. And it was really a delightful experience to be on the board because of the growth and because of the changes that we were making. And I look back now and say, hey, we worked on this.
Like the Strip Beautification Project.
All those pretty trees on the Strip. Well, that was kind of my idea, and we called together all the hotels. That first day we had every single general manager or owner of the hotels at that meeting and have them pay for it and pay for it forever. It was a big job, but I'm very proud of that.
Karen has a lot to be proud of, taking a personal tragedy and turning it into a life of public service for a county she has always called home.
I graduated from Las Vegas High School. I feel like I'm a native, even though I'm not. We've been here so long and seen a lot of growth and a lot of wonderful things happen here.
While Karen's challenges led her to a career in politics, other women used their adversity to become community crusaders.
My first job on this strip was working at the Stardust as a maid. They said you had to do 13 rooms. Well, I tried very hard. And I never could get no more than 4 or 5 rooms. I guess I worked there for 2 weeks and they fired me.
Ruby Duncan made her way out west from Tallulah, Louisiana in 1952. The 18-year-old was lured by the lights and the promise of good-paying jobs. After a failed start at the Stardust, she went to work as a cook at the Sahara Hotel, but found herself unemployed once again after a bad fall in the kitchen.
And I hit that grease and I just messed myself up.
With 6 children to feed and unable to work, Ruby found herself on welfare, a situation she despised. But dealing with the welfare department was an even bigger disappointment.
That's when I told them, I said, I want a job. And they said, you can't work because you hurt.
She was stuck, couldn't find a job, and couldn't survive on welfare. And she would soon discover a lot of other women were in the same boat.
And that's how I began organizing one by one. So we got enough of women where enough of us could really go through the projects, each project, and we grew.
The movement picked up more momentum in 1971 after Nevada cut 75% of aid to welfare mothers. Ruby knew there was one surefire method to grab attention to her cause.
We went down the strip. It was about 6,000 of us.
The march ended with a sit-in at the crown jewel of the strip, Caesar's Palace.
It was a moving situation because I started crying. And all of a sudden, somebody come up and put their hands on my shoulder and told me, I'm the president of Caesars. Nobody's gonna bother you.
There would be many more demonstrations, marches, and sit-ins, and eventually Nevada reinstated and raised all the grant benefits. But there was still a lot of work to be done.
After we had did all the marching and, as they say, all the hell raising, we decided that it was time now that we could do some administrative stuff.
In 1972, Operation Life was born. an organization that would help improve the lives of the most needy, offering programs like daycare for working mothers, a health clinic for families living below poverty level. Ruby would serve as executive director until 1990, when poor health forced her to retire.
I'm just so proud of being able to be brave enough to speak up, to get up, to move, and to go and testify before everybody to know what was going on.
While Ruby spoke out for the poor and underprivileged, another Valley woman used her voice for victims, the victims of drunk drivers.
Well, the whole family was nearly annihilated by Miles Berry Leffler. My mom suffered such traumatic injuries and so many medical complications that she ultimately did die. My husband and myself and our children were all very, very seriously injured.
Sandy and her family were on their way to Disneyland when their truck was hit by a drunk driver, a driver with 2 prior DUIs. He was speeding. He was underage. He ran a stop sign, and he forever changed the life of Sandy and her family.
His, if you want to say, punishment was a $100 fine, and he walked out of the courtroom laughing, and that was my introduction to the criminal justice system.
And with that, an activist was born.
Again, it was such a rude awakening and finding out the attitude of the judicial system, the attitude of some of the public regarding DUI. And it just, you know, it's like, this can't be. There has to be something better.
In 1982, Sandy formed a local chapter of Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
When I became involved, the DUI laws were virtually non-existent, as were victim rights at that time as well. You know, you could kill somebody and just have it reduced to a parking ticket. That's how ridiculous it was. So that's what we had to change. We had to change that attitude. We had to educate the public, and we had to educate the judiciary. That was a major challenge.
Before challenging legislatures, Sandy's goal was to simply create a victim support group.
That was my whole agenda at that time. That is what my priority was, and had no idea that it would lead to the other things that have gone on in the past 25 years.
Other things like the legislation that would allow victims of drunk drivers and any other violent crimes to give a victim's impact statement at the time of sentencing. Along with Victims Impact Statement is a program near and dear to Sandy, the Victims Impact Panel.
My son was ripped out of my life and murdered by a drunk driver because his boss's fiance chose to get drunk, get behind the wheel of a truck.
That was another one that we felt has made a major difference. And we got that legislation passed, I believe it was in 1993. And that was with former Senator Mark James, who had assisted with that. And that particular piece of legislation mandates that anybody who has been convicted of DUI, first and second time misdemeanor offense, must attend a victim impact panel.
The panel has been so successful that over 90% of the offenders that go through the program have not come back as repeat offenders. And there would be many more milestones.
Anybody who's under 15 years of age and riding with a drunken adult, there's enhanced penalties on that offender as well. Open container, I mean, that took us 3 sessions to get that passed, but we finally got that passed. And then, of course, the one that took us 14 years to pass was lowering our blood alcohol standard from 0.10 to 0.08.
In 1994, Sandy parted ways with MADD and started Stop DUI.
We are the only anti-drunk driving organization in the entire country that provides direct financial assistance to our innocent victims of drunk driving crashes.
Unfortunately, there are always lots of families to help. The innocent victims of lives lost that line her office says it all. And it's these pictures and their stories that keep this lady going strong.
Yeah, I do get frustrated, and but I'm not tired out yet. Not yet. Not yet.
Our last local lady wasn't an activist, a politician, or an entertainer. She was simply a hard-working woman who lived to the ripe old age of 100. Nearly 70 of those years she spent right here in Clark County. She'd seen a lot, and she shared her stories with us.
I got a job at the Apache Hotel as a cocktail waitress, and then I went to the El Rancho, and then I went to the Sahara.
Mary Carolla landed her first job in 1943. Serving drinks was always an adventure, like her run-in with infamous mobster Bugsy Siegel and his girlfriend, Virginia Hill.
Virginia Hill was sitting at the counter, and Buzzy was there, and they were talking, you know, about the flamingo. And so he just came and gave me a $50 bill and told me to go climb out like they had a 21 table. So I went there, and then I came back, and they had dance floor, and he asked me to dance. So I danced with him.
But Virginia didn't take too kindly to anyone dancing with her man.
So she said to me, I was in the bath toilet room, and she was washing my hands. She says, I just wanted you to lay off of my boyfriend. I said, oh, you mean the man I danced with? She said, yes. I said, well, you know, I said, my boyfriend is married, and I've got his wife after me, and I sure don't want another woman giving me hell. She was going to hit me. She was really bad.
But for Mary, the chance encounter was worth Virginia's wrath.
Well, he had such a magnetic personality that he just drew me to him, that I just wanted him to hold me, you know. I was really attracted to him. And I guess I showed it when I was dancing with him. And she was sitting at the counter and saw that, I guess, because she came after me.
That wouldn't be Mary's first run-in with ill-tempered ladies. Like the time she accidentally spilled a drink on Mary Pickford. She may have been a silent movie star, but according to Mary, she had no trouble expressing herself.
She reached like this and the drink fell on her dress. Holy God. Did she get mad? And nasty. She was the nastiest I ever do.
That movie star may have stiffed Mary on a tip, but she could always count on millionaire playboy Howard Hughes for the big bucks.
Elvis tipped $15, but he never gave it to you. He always had somebody with him that took care of that. He was really nice.
And it was at the Sahara Hotel that she struck up a friendship with another Hollywood heavyweight, old Blue Eyes himself, Frank Sinatra.
Well, he ordered some chicken livers with mushrooms, and he didn't like the way they cooked them. So I said to him, I said, you could buy the chicken livers if you don't like them. And the maitre d' said, I've been to her house. He says, does she have a kitchen? He said, I'll buy the chicken livers and I'll come and cook at your place.
Mary would also cook for performers that were not welcome at the hotel. In the 1950s, segregation was in full swing. That meant black performers couldn't stay, play, or eat at the casinos on the Strip after they were done with their show.
Then the Four Aces, those color fellows, they came here and they cooked dinner in my house. They wouldn't let them stay in the hotel, but they couldn't come in the dining room to eat. So I said, just buy the food you want and come over.
Mary has many fond memories to choose from in the downtown house she's called home since 1943. Once a quaint neighborhood surrounded by friends, now is dwarfed by multi-story office buildings.
Then they tore down all those houses, they're all gone. There's nothing but lawyers here.
Mary may have liked it better when the town was smaller, but couldn't imagine living anywhere else.
If I had my life to live over again, I wouldn't change a damn thing. I had a good time.
If you'd like to learn more about remarkable women of Clark County and check out the events for Women's History Month, just log on to our website at accessclarkcounty.com, and don't forget to watch us next time as we leap back and look forward at 100 years of Clark County history.